Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to Compass Games Live, episode 45. My name is John Kranz. It's a pleasure to be with you again, and you'll probably see I have some special guests, little furry friends underneath here that are going to be opening and closing the door on me probably, but it's a pleasure to be here. Of course, I'm excited because tonight we have yet another designer interview, which means you're not stuck with me the whole time, which is a thumbs up from everybody, I'm sure. So we're going to be welcoming special guest Scott Leibbrandt today, and we're going to be talking about, we'll mention, a few designs, but we're going to focus on a recent release, which is An Attrition of Souls, which just recently shipped not too long ago. In the last month and a half, we shipped it out. So we're really excited to have Scott here to talk about this new release, and we're really happy to have him here with us. One thing I want to share as we get ready to introduce our special guest is want to show you here quickly just some of the games that he's done, just to make you aware of them. So Colonialism, we've done some Euro games at Compass, and Colonialism is a very interesting one. This is one that Scott Leibbrandt has done. He actually had an earlier edition that was done through a previous publisher. So this was a newer edition with just some modest changes. I think we added maybe 2 cards, or there were some very minor enhancements made to it. So I don't know if you're aware of Colonialism, so I'll be looking forward to talking to Scott tonight a little bit about Colonialism after we do some brief introductions and discussions with him. And then for An Attrition of Souls, and here again, I should go back. I got lots to show you guys tonight. So if I go back to the Discord channel, what we do is we do a featured game. And since we have here Attrition of Souls with Scott Leibbrandt tonight, we made that our featured game right out of the gate on our Discord channel. So what we did there was we provided links to a designer interview he did with the Player's Aid. We have these videos, which you can now find as well on the product page. So a lot of videos here, as you can see, about 4 or 5, including a replay after action report that was posted over on Reddit site. So we basically armed everybody as best we can over on our Discord channel, all about An Attrition of Souls to get you ready for this, but also we've updated the product page here. So this is obviously the game we're going to be talking about. We've got the back of the box information you can check out as well while we're talking tonight with Scott, although we'll be talking about the game. But again, what we've done is we've added all these videos as of today. So we want you to be able to find these videos on the product page as well. So if you check out the product page, I definitely encourage you to check out these 3 videos that we have available for you. So after tonight's broadcast, please do check it out. Maybe you'll order the game if you don't have the game already. So with that, and without much further ado, let's go ahead and please welcome our special guest tonight, which is Scott Leibbrandt. How you doing, Scott?
Hey, how's it going?
It's great to have you here. I really appreciate you joining us for tonight. So like I said, we have a lot to cover. I want to focus on An Attrition of Souls, as I mentioned, but let's do some introductions first. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about where you're joining us from tonight. If you want to share anything about what you do during the day.
Yeah, sure. Balmy, lovely.
I can't hear you. There you are.
Oh,
okay.
All right. Balmy, lovely Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So that's where I'm coming from. Day job is export compliance. I ship paint around the world. It's pretty horrifically boring, and that's the last I'll say on that. But yeah, good to be here.
All right. It sounds, hey, it's great that you got some. Yeah, pleasure to have you here. And then I always like to ask designers, what was your first game that you played, or how was your introduction to the hobby?
When I was younger, I kind of, obviously there was kind of Risk, and when I was growing up, Hero Quest was out there, and I was always really interested in these games. I never really found any friends who want to play them with me. But then around high school age, I met a couple friends in high school that were kind of into war games. My one friend, his older brothers were into war games. And I played way too much We the People or Victory in the Pacific, War at Sea, those kind of games. Kind of not heavier war games, but, modest level, just kind of fun ones. Definitely tried to get a few Russian campaigns in. I don't think we ever finished that one. But so I kind of got into war games first, and then gradually got more into Euro games in college. And that's kind of my background.
Did you have a favorite game, like when you were growing up? Was there a favorite game you had that you liked to look forward to play? Can you remember at all?
Like I said, way too much Victory in the Pacific, and I always got stuck. I always got stuck with the Japanese, and I could never quite win. I mean, I pulled off a few victories, but it was a shocker when I learned that, apparently there's still tournaments for that game, and apparently the Japanese are favored in that game. I'm like, what? I swear I only won like a half dozen times.
Somebody had to favor them, right?
Yeah, right.
I have to do a plug since you mentioned Victory in the Pacific, because one of the projects we're working on right now, we're making good progress on, is John Edwards' Victory at Sea. It's really more based on War at Sea. I know that's not the Pacific. It's the other version there, with the Brits and all. But if you like rolling dice and you like Victory in the Pacific, then you'll probably be happy with Victory at Sea too. So it'd be right up your alley, I'm sure.
I'll have to check that out.
So how did you decide to go from a gamer to a designer? Did you jump full throttle in, or were you play testing for a while, or doing reviews, or what made you scratch that itch that said, you know what, I'm going to start designing games?
So I always kind of dabbled with designing games. I mean, I would play around with like creating my own rules for Axis and Allies and that kind of, silliness and what have you. But kind of late in college, I had an idea for essentially a tile placement war game that was called DEFCON 1. And I was really kind of adamant that I wanted the only mechanic, the only random chance mechanic to be what tiles you drew. Yeah. And I could never quite get it right. And honestly, Attrition of Souls is kind of me coming back to that, making peace with adding dice and other random chance elements, and kind of re-envisioning, recreating that idea. But yeah, DEFCON was the first thing I worked on, and then Colonialism I designed during grad school, and that was the first one I got published.
Can you fact check for me what changed from the original edition to the Compass edition of Colonialism? I thought maybe there was a card or two, but I couldn't recall exactly. There were some very minor modifications, I think, to your Colonialism game. So
we clarified a couple of the base cards. We nerfed the military campaign card. We changed the consolidated holdings card. And then we added one minor little expansion pack where essentially players can trade in resources they collect for bonuses that'll follow them throughout the game. So kind of a cost-benefit analysis thing. But yeah, it wasn't a ton. I was pretty happy with how the first edition was, just minor little tweaks.
What got you interested in I think you said it was grad school that you did Colonialism. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Your first,
yeah.
What was it that piqued your interest to do that topic for your Euro game? Curious about that.
Well, I mean, it's more so with me as a designer. I get these mechanics, and I just kind of want to know. I think, where the heck could this work? Like, how could I make this fit? Because you certainly don't want your theme to be slapped on. Like, your theme has to just kind of fit organically with these mechanics. I had these card play mechanics that were really cutthroat. Really, I like Euro games, but I don't like those feel-good Euro games. I like the nasty, get at your opponent kind of Euro games. And 18th and early 19th century colonialism, there's nothing pretty about that. It was all the great powers.
You weren't shy to go straight to the nastiness there.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I know on like some sites, I think maybe, I don't know, I don't want to call out any site names, but there's people that will obviously take offense. How could you make this a game? Or I come across that a lot for different games. I mean, I could distill it down to any war game could offend somebody, to be honest, because unfortunately it's war and bad things are happening. But you didn't hold any punches there. You went right for the theme, and I sort of say props to you for just going for it, and we're happy to support it. And there's always insights to take out of the game, and I think our hope is to learn from history. And
Absolutely.
there's always some very nasty parts to history. For
History,
sure. So,
unfortunately, is filled with nastiness, and hopefully we make the artwork and kind of the theme of colonialism gritty enough that we're not sugarcoating kind of everything that happened.
And that's where I would flip the script a little bit. While people might say, oh, picking a topic like that, people were giving you props online saying, this is a really dark, thematically dark, like you said, gritty. I'll steal your words. This is a really gritty, dark topic you're doing here. But people were sort of like saying this, hey, it is a fascinating look at history. With the mechanics and what's happening, and so props to you again for doing that. I mean, you didn't do. It wasn't Candyland, right? It wasn't like Candyland somewhere. You didn't go for that. But what you said was interesting. I read an article. I think it was a well published with a big readership, and they talked about what's the difference between a Euro game designer and a war game designer, a conflict simulation designer. And what it talked about was there's two very different approaches to doing a design. The Euro gamer, and I think you sort of mentioned this, so I'll ask you this in terms of Attrition of Souls, because we're going to segue to that game now, is a Euro gamer is going to think about game mechanics first and foremost. That comes first. Whatever that topic is, that's always going to be secondary. It's going to be what fits the game mechanic the best. Whereas a conflict simulation designer is, I want to do something on the Eastern Front. I'm really interested in this battle. I've researched. I've got the order of battle. It's a very specific. Now I got to figure out, how do I model this? What I want my focus of design to be. So tell us, please, where do you fall in that spectrum from starting with the mechanics and that's your base, or do you start with the topic and find the mechanics to fit the topic?
Well, being a dirty Eurogamer at heart, those mechanics are my baby. I come up with the mechanics first. There's a couple cool, nifty mechanics I have, and I find a theme that, fits it. But, I don't think in any of my published titles I've ever slapped on a theme. I try to find a theme that truly just enhances the mechanics I have. And, with Attrition of Souls, I hope I achieve that. There is, it creates both gridlock and also this tense atmosphere where, the dice could determine a breakthrough. This could be the big push. Because, isn't that what all the powers were after with every offensive? This was the one that was going to break through and make, in Berlin by Christmas. So, I hope that all those mechanics lend themselves to the World War I atmosphere. I certainly feel they do, or I wouldn't have applied that theme.
Okay, so we're going to start then. Let's focus in here then. So I don't know how many people here have your game already. So if somebody has it, I'm going to ask them on live to give me a +1 if they have the game already. But for those that don't have this game, since we talk about starting with mechanics first, please share with everyone, what were the key mechanics you came up with that ended up going to this World War I strategic game? What were those mechanics you wanted to use?
Well, again, at its heart, it's from an older design where I really wanted a tile draw mechanic where you draw the units you have every turn and then you use them to the best of your abilities. I really don't like war games or Ameritrash games, if you want to get away from war games, where you really got to think about how to use X amount of production points. That just grinds, personally, yep. my preference.
It takes that feel away, I think. It takes away from the ambiance of what you're trying to recreate, right? That situational drama and that theme.
Exactly. And war games do that well. War games rarely have that. They usually have order of battle charts where, these units will appear at this time. Well, this game doesn't have that, but has that random, one turn, you might draw a Turkish heavy army, but you might have really needed to have a few more Germans to stabilize the Western Front. Or maybe, in 1915, like the Entente, they draw more Italians than they were expecting. Do they bring the Italians in earlier than historically, expected? There's kind of those decisions that you got to face based on your tile draw. And then the other mechanic I'm kind of proud of is I wanted kind of an attrition warfare mechanic. So what I did is I had the battle dice that the attacker, the active player rolls every turn. Those are the same dice that the defender uses to allocate hits. So really, you can never have lucky dice. I hate it when, one side rolls perfectly and the other side rolls horribly. both sides are using the same dice. The only thing is you have kind of that combined arms thing where different units hit on different dice.
How did you come up with that idea? Was that an idea from another game about the dice being used the same for both sides, or can you recall how you got that idea?
I can't. Honestly, I come up with some of the best mechanics either in the shower or walking the dog. So I guess one of those two.
Our next interview will be with you in the shower when we talk about your next
I don't think anyone wants that.
We'll blow up the audience, right? We'll go through the roof. So, okay, so
might not have any viewership.
Yeah, so it's a chit draw. So the chit draw is the key mechanic.
Yeah.
How do you reflect? Yeah, so obviously, gosh, World War I strategic. I'm not like too stunned that for attrition you decided on World War I as a topic. I think that sort of makes sense. So, but how do you capture the attrition aspect of? I'm not a well-read person on World War I. I know enough about it, I guess, but it seems like this wearing down. It wasn't like be home, like you said, by winter, before the leaf falls, home before the leaf falls. So are you doing this grinding attritional? Is this part of this experience of your game at all that you're going after? So,
the other mechanic, there's many smaller mechanics I'm not mentioning, but the other mechanic is there's only one round of combat each turn. So, in order to make a decisive breakthrough, you figure you have 3 tile types: infantry, artillery, and airplanes. And you figure that, they hit on 1s, 2s, and 3s. You actually got to have somewhat of an overwhelming force to create that kind of breakthrough and advance to the next segment of the map. So it's a little bit hard to explain without actually having played the game, but you can also get, especially mid and late games, certain fronts can stagnate where if you don't have enough resources, it's hard to achieve that breakthrough, and you just have that constant attrition. You're just constantly feeding more pieces into the meat grind, and you're trying to do that mental math of like, how many tiles, assuming you're not the one trying to make the breakthrough, how many tiles do I need to move here just to soak up hits to not let them have that decisive breakthrough? Or vice versa, how much do I have to throw in to really ensure that I'm going to knock them out and be able to advance towards their capital?
How was it for you during the design process of this game? This isn't colonialism. It's a bit different here, although you said it was the same mechanic you used earlier for something else. How was the whole development playtesting experience for you? Was there anything you decided to change later, or something like aha moment? Was there any aspect that was particularly challenging, or anything that just stands out in your mind about your design effort for Attrition of Souls? So
balancing the powers was tricky. The Entente come into this with a much heavier industrial capacity. They bring more units onto the board each turn. And the Central Powers counter that with being a little bit more efficient. They have a better balance of units, whereas the Entente are more infantry heavy. The Germans in particular are the powerhouse of the game, where they have this really well-rounded army that can usually decisively achieve a breakthrough on one front, but kind of balancing, getting the two sides to kind of play differently, that was a bit of a challenge. With most Euro games, you're just, each player, you have blue player, green player, red player, and, turn order is the only thing that's, different between them. Here you got to create two sides and kind of tell a story. I wouldn't want the Central Powers to play like the Entente or vice versa. So in that sense, that was a little bit difficult with play testing. Also, we did this kind of thing where I had a bunch of Chrome, we kind of peeled it back, took the raw game and made it a base game, and then we took all that little fun Chrome stuff and put it as optional rules that, players can kind of choose what they want to play with. And I think that works better for learning the game. The first time around, it says right in the rule books, consider playing just the base game to start off, and then you can add as, you become ready. And hopefully, bring a different experience.
I think that's the accessibility of the game. So if I could just share for a moment back on your product page, as I mentioned, I want to scroll down to the third and last video that people can check out. Bare Bones Wargaming did a replay of, I think it was a later turn in 1914, and he did talk about first he had played it 4 or 5 times already. He mentioned at the intro, so the game plays very quickly, which is great. It's a game that very accessible with good variability. But he did mention up front. He's only done the basic game so far several times. I think he did experiment with some optional rules, but he says the optional rules can really have an effect. Or can you provide more flavor around what you have for optional rules? Because it looks like he does mention there's one thing he found attractive about your game is you do have a sort of a cafeteria style of optional rules to choose from, and I'm really interested if you can sort of. And again, I would point out to our viewers, please check out this Bare Bones Wargaming replay. It's a single turn, lasts about 40 minutes, but he covers, the general game overall, which is great. Gives the high level picture of it. But he does mention the optional rules quite a bit. So I was hoping you could expand upon the optional rules a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different optional rules. Probably the biggest one I would say is there's one, or the one that'll cause the most change that I was most leery about, but we ultimately went with it, and it's a lot of fun, even if it's a little unbalancing, is the variable power entry. So as the game's structured now in the base game, powers they can enter a half a year earlier than they did historically. That's the earliest they could possibly enter. And with the variable entry, I mean, you can get the U.S. entering the war in 1915. You can get, there's just all kinds of weirdness that can happen. And that's kind of a fun one. I kind of like playing that way. We got different ones that involve units. You can't have a World War I game without a few tank tokens. I mean, that just wouldn't be fun.
There you go. Let's put in the tanks.
Same thing with the stormtroopers. Need a few stormtroopers, not the white ones and helmets, but pickle house ones.
Else, yes. Gotcha. We're sticking with World War I here.
Yeah, right. We got some a little bit that adds more of a defensive element to the game. We got air reserves where you can kind of use your airplanes, which are usually your offensive striking unit. You can kind of keep them in reserve and mobilize them when you're not the active player. Mm-hmm. You keep them in what we called an airdrome, or aerodrome. I might be pronouncing that wrong, and then when you're the defensive player, you can essentially mobilize them quick in battles at your choosing. It kind of gives you this more defensive ability. And then we also added a little bit of fog of war. We added a couple decoy tokens and rules for playing with your pieces kind of upside down.
Nice.
That's going to take a little bit more. That's going to add to the gameplay time, but it could definitely, not knowing how your opponent is truly positioned, especially for the central powers on that opening turn, that's tricky. That adds a whole new element.
And you mentioned limited intelligence in that Bare Bones Wargaming replay video that I just talked about. He mentions that Solitaire Playability is quite good. He really likes the Solitaire aspects. He's actually just been playing at Solitaire, but he says he had some tips in the video, just homemade tips that he did that added to the Solitaire experience. Only reason I mentioned that is just to let people know. We always like to mention every game we talk about, how's the Solitaire playability? That's always going to be asked about. So I'll let you comment on the Solitaire playability yourself. I just wanted to reference that video again.
I mean, I think it's quite high. Just with the tile draw mechanic, you're playing as the central powers. Ooh, these are my tiles. How do I best use them? You don't know what you're going to draw on your Entente turn to counter that. You draw those tiles. Oh, how do I use them? Not knowing what the central powers are going to draw next turn. Unlike having a chart when every unit's going to arrive on the battlefield, just not knowing what you're going to draw that next turn. I think that really adds to the solo play testing. And I played this quite a bit.
Bet.
I mean,
I bet you did. Yeah. So, it plays quickly relatively, but it's nice. It's got that base game to it where you can really have a nice, quick, solo play experience if you want to go solo. But then you've got those optional rules and even the limited intelligence you're adding. And that's great. So you're adding flavor as it goes. I think that's fantastic. So since we have so many World War I games at Compass, somebody said on one of our social accounts. They said we've cornered the World War I market, at least the strategic World War I market, with so many games. So what I wanted to ask you is, did you draw inspiration from any past published games or designs, whether they're World War I or not? I'm just curious, were there any games that you would say, oh yeah, there were some mechanics or the feel of the game? This one's sort of what I was thinking about at all. I was curious about that.
Yeah, there was a little bit, not so much. I'm not sure if not so much mechanically, but in terms of flavor. And I'm only looking at the floor because I got sitting next to me. It's the First World War. It's by Phalanx Games, and it's Ted Racier. Yeah. Here.
Show it.
This guy here. I haven't played it. Wrong side.
Yep,
I haven't played it in years, but.
Yep.
But, just that it has that kind of linear paths and this kind of element of breaking through. And there were things I didn't like about the game that much. I didn't like it had this weird ending style where if you achieved a breakthrough, you rolled a die. And if the die came up a certain die face, you just won or lost. And there was stuff like that I wasn't so
you just mentioned earlier. You just mentioned earlier about how you have the same die for both sides. You don't want that to happen, like one roll to sort of go off to the wayside. So I can see that sort of relates back to what you said earlier about how you've got the dice mechanics working in your design.
I do not like dice. I do not like dice. I don't like dice.
You got something personal against dice, huh?
Yes.
Okay,
or maybe they have something personal against me. No, I just, you want your decisions to be meaningful and, impactful, where, if you made the smart decision, you don't want the dice to foil that. And, I don't want to do that to people who play my designs, that they roll a fistful of dice and the dice, just mess them up. And I can't say that that is never going to happen in Attrition of Souls. I mean, sometimes it's the dice are involved. They can mess. Trust me, dice have affected me, but I think it minimizes the role of the dice in the luck.
Yeah, and you're putting the emphasis on player decisions, and obviously that the draw system you've got going on.
Tile draw is a random luck mechanic for sure.
All right, well, let's do this. We've got some interest here we've generated, so I'm going to throw some comments at you. Maybe it might be a question here or two. So we've got Gregory Smith, does a lot of solitaire designs for Compass, and he says, I like this guy already. He thinks like me. So, and just to let you know, I know you have a small screen. I think you're using your phone. So I'm going to read off some of these comments for you so you can hear what people are. You might not be able to see it on your screen. But yeah, Gregory Smith is basically giving you kudos. Also, Dennis.
Thanks, Gregory.
YouTube channel. Yeah, thanks, Greg, for that. That's always great for designers to hear from another designer. So Dennis Canning's over joining us on YouTube tonight. He says, excellent game regarding Attrition of Souls. Maurice Fitzgerald, who's sort of my neighbor just down the street here somewhere. He does his own Mo's Game Table video YouTube channels and everything else. And he says he made a long comment. I'll go ahead and read it here so you can hear it. So it's an Attrition of Souls is really a fun game. Easy to play, has extra optional rules to customize the game the way you want, and solos very well thanks to the random tile draw. Mo could have done my interview with you like in 15 seconds. We'd be done. That was my whole interview, was that statement.
I could already be having a beer right now.
We'd be doing a micro. I could have Mo on. We can do micro interviews at Compass. We'll have a designer on for 30 seconds and then you'll be gone. Okay, we'll do that. And then
that's the new segment.
Mo just closes saying it's a lot of fun, the game, and one to definitely pick up. Keith talks about your design. Keith Powell joins us on Facebook. He talks about your design approach to games. He says it's like writing either the music or the lyrics first. So it's like one or the other, like which way you're coming at, sort of the artistic vein there.
Now I'm trying to think in that analogy, which I do first, based on the analogy.
Yeah, think about that. So yeah, is it the lyrics or maybe the lyrics are the mechanics? I don't know. The lyrics sounds like that's the story you're telling. That could be the topic you're picking. So we're gonna have to bring. I'm gonna
have to noodle that over. Yeah,
that's a very profound statement from Keith. It has us pausing, thinking.
Almost philosophical.
It is. It's very philosophical. We have a very philosophical group here, by the way. I just wanted to advise you on that. And then your comments about the dice. Patchwork Pictures joining us on YouTube channel says that's interesting. Interesting. He says also I hate what he calls swingy dice. Dice that can really take it to extremes. So. definitely there. And Brian warns you on Facebook, don't do chit draw in the shower. So if your design ideas, you don't want to do especially if you drop it on the floor, we don't want you to bend over and all that fun stuff.
This is true. Does also make for soggy chits.
Soggy chits. Yeah, that's a good theme though for World War I for the the winter season, the mud effects, we could maybe apply it that way. Sal Maldonado is joining us on YouTube, and he says he's really excited to see these young designers Compass is working with, how impressive it is. So I think he's talking about you. I know we've had Christopher Davis on, Dan Bullock has been on. We've had some people. Basically, it doesn't look like, you don't look like me, like you're going to kick the bucket tomorrow is what they're basically saying.
Oh.
So, here, and much more.
Thank you. I'm flattered.
There you go. So, and then Dennis here says it's good that Compass finally has a World War I strategic game. Dennis is right. We need to do more World War I strategic games. We've only got about 3 or 4 already, so we need to do more. He's joking, of course. So that's why you get that. Greg says, Gregory Smith, our designer, says that you make a great point about the 6-1 dice combo that just destroys you in some games. And then he mentions Path of Glories comes to mind. And I know Greg has Path of Glory in his head because his Imperial Tide game, I think, is probably a closer resemblance to Path of Glory in terms of the scope of the game, of how that's what we love at Compass, is we love supporting you as a designer of all the different designer approaches. And there are a lot of different design approaches. World War I strategic, we're seeing that. The Lamps, we got the Lamps game, we got yours, Greg's game coming out, on and on and on, all these World War I games. But every design is different. There's definitely different creativity going on with every game. So good comment there by Greg. Let's see what other comments we have here. Let's see here. Lancer over on YouTube mentions, at least initially, it's that sort of illusionary home before the leaves fall feel to the campaign, giving players 20/20 hindsight as to the fact that it's inevitably going to be a long war. Definitely got that for sure, right? Also, I didn't mention this yet, but for folks on social channels, I'll just mention this advertisement real quick. We have a group that started a MeWe group for fans of Compass Games. So I actually just posted there today. I think the group just started today. It's just an alternative to Facebook if people want to have different venues. So we're also going to support that fans page over on MeWe group just to keep it going. Dennis agrees the game plays well Solitaire. Dennis has the game. He agrees with you that it solos very well. Mo chimes in saying yes, especially with the random bag draw for solo play. That works out very well. Joe, again, another person here. Quite a few people got your game already and have solo played it, apparently. Neat, easy to play solo system. So, and Patchwork hates dice like you do as well. And
don't we all?
And people say, so some of their people also say the dice hates them as well. So you're not alone, although Sal says he loves his dice.
Oh,
so Sal loves his dice. So I'm
glad the dice aren't persecuting Sal, but for the rest of us poor souls.
Exactly. So one thing I want to ask you is, you've done some designs now. So what people always like me, I think, to ask designers is, do you have anything in the works, anything you're looking at doing, or anything you'd consider doing in the future? Are you doing anything actively right now? Just fill us in. What can we expect next?
I have not been too active. The 2 things I would mention is, I would like to circle back to that DEF CON 1 idea if I can get my mind around it, and kind of do the tile draw system with no dice, kind of tile draw chess, if you will. But that's going to require a little bit more thought and a little bit more time on my hands. But the one game that I actually is pretty well finished, and I'm kind of shopping around at the moment. The current title is just The Great Fire of Rome. That could change. It's out with a couple publishers, but it's a cooperative game. It plays, it could play any number, but I would say 1 to 4 is about the right amount. And it's, most cooperative games, all cooperative games I can think of are for the most part Euro. Right, and this one is, I'm not going to say it's a war game. That would be a lie. I would just be pandering to the audience, but it is solidly Ameritrash. You take on the 7 firefighting cohorts of Rome, and you're trying to fight against the Great Fire of, gosh, I hope I'm not screwing this up, 64 AD, the famous fire that Nero supposedly fiddled during.
Now you want me to go on Amazon and buy a book or download it on Kindle. Like I've never heard anybody talk about the fire in Rome. I missed that history day in class in college, but this is a very interesting topic to me. I don't know why I don't know why the fire appeals to me, but maybe it's the Rome, maybe that it's tied to Rome. And you said 64 AD was
64 AD, I believe. And if
we got some fact checkers here, we're gonna check your facts in real time here in the comments.
The worst part is if I'm getting it wrong, my co-designer is going to be really upset, because usually all the other games I published I've designed alone, but this one I designed with my friend Gregory Aldrete, who formerly worked in the UW system. He's a Roman historian, a professor, and he guided all the historical aspects. I mean, we tried to make the firefighting as accurate as possible. The units you're working with are bucket brigades, people throwing water on the fire, but then you also got pickaxes, catapults, and water pumps. And I wouldn't have known that pickaxes and catapults were used in firefighting.
Is that to break up? Yeah, to break up.
They would just, destroy the building that's on fire to make sure it didn't spread to the next one. And we kind of got that in the mechanics too. When you use them, if you kind of score a hit, you have to destroy a building tile just in order to put out a couple extra fires. We kind of added that fun where the mechanics and theme kind of come together. So
I love it. Dennis on YouTube did a single emoji to sell your game. It's a little fire emoji.
maybe we don't need a title.
I think that's the best marketing for the game. We did a full page ad just with the fire emoji that Dennis posted. That's all you need. Well, I can't I can't say we're going to advertise it because, like you said, it's out to various publishers. But it sounds very enticing. We got a few comments about what you're talking about right now. Patchwork over on YouTube saying, "Do I get to build my palace afterward, or do my political enemies accuse me of burning it down while I make backfires?"
I mean, honestly, in the early design of that, we were considering whether there would be kind of this political element, because the Roman elite would use fires and floods to kind of wash out the poor and kind of what do we call that nowadays, where you make I forget what the term is now, but they would essentially clear out the slums and steal them for their own purposes. So that thought had crossed my mind.
Patchwork asked, "Can you blame it on the Christians?"
I mean, Nero tried his best.
Mike, see, you've been fact checked. See, I told you, I'm not kidding. This audience is very, very sharp. We have, by the way, it's have well over 75 people, which is great online right now.
Cool.
But classical studies, his son, who's a classical studies major, says it's 64 AD is about right. So there you go.
Got it.
So thumbs up on that. And then somebody said, "What about a game starting fires in Rome instead of fighting them?" That could be add-on. Couldn't that be an add-on? Like actually starting the fire? I mean, then we could put it in California. You can use it present day and
just Nero sneaking around starting fires at night.
Well, speaking of Nero, we've got Operation Nero, Moscow 1812. Somebody just suggested Operation Nero, Moscow 18. There you go, Nero. Somebody's reading your mind. Do you have fire insurance? Do you want to buy it? Urban renewal, eminent domain, redevelopment. What else we got here? It was, here we go.
Revitalization? Is that what it's called?
Yes, redevelopment. Well, yeah, we could call it that. He said redevelopment. I'm not sure which the proper term would be. Maybe there's a little different. I bet it's a nuanced term is my guess. But also James is chiming in on Facebook. James says it was July 1864 AD when the fires broke out, starting in the Circus Maximus. Okay, I got to get a book on this now.
Well, hey, the Circus Maximus does start the Inferno. The Inferno token starts in the Circus Maximus, so we even got that down. My co-designer wouldn't have it any other way.
Here's a new title for your game, and if Kempis can end up doing it, that'd be great. July 64 AD, Things Got Hot in Rome. Things got hot in Rome with the fire emoji. I like that.
Things got hot in Rome, 64 AD.
See, there you go. You know what? These guys are marketing geniuses here. But
are you sure are you sure we shouldn't just have the fire emoji take up the whole front of the box and inside it just 64?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that would sell really well. I think we've just helped sell your game to somebody who's going to pick it up. I give it a thumbs up, but I need to read a book about the history now of the fires in Rome. It's really got me.
I probably do. I probably do too. Thank goodness I had somebody else who knew the history.
You've got your friend that knows the history inside out, so you're off the hook probably already. For sure.
I can just baby the mechanics.
Yeah, let's see here. There was one great comment I didn't get to on, here we go. Aaron, I want to bring up Aaron's comment about An Attrition of Souls. I missed it earlier, so really nice comment. He says he's really enjoyed playing the game solo. He's played it about 12 times with different optional rules, and he'll definitely revisit the game soon. So a lot of variability, just given the rules alone, a lot of options to how to play it. And he says the production quality of the game, the components, mounted map, the cards, he wants to say kudos on the production quality of the game, that it's a really a nice game. And somebody else mentions they're going to pick up the game tonight. So I think it was James saying he's got about 5. Yeah, right here. James says he's going to add it to his 5 other World War I games he has already.
I don't think you have nearly enough. You need at least a dozen.
3 or 4 are from Compass. No, I'm just kidding. No, there's a lot of World War I games out there for sure.
And going back to the production value, I got to thank Compass for that. And going back to the amazing artwork, Bill Morgul did a great, phenomenal job. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say what a just awesome job he did with the artwork. Yeah, Bill's here online, I think, tonight. So I want to give a shout out to Bill, who's joining us live tonight, for the great job. Great job he did. John Longshore says he's sold on the game, so he's placing an order for the game. Michael Kwan here says Rome is Burning Nero and the Fire That Ended a Dynasty by Anthony Barrett. We have a book recommendation. There's your book. That's what I wanted to ask. I forgot to ask about a book recommendation. So everybody take notes. According to Michael, we want Rome is Burning Nero and the Fire That Ended a Dynasty. Okay, that's my book. All right. To read right there. That's awesome. Some thanks, light Michael. Reading. Yeah, I bet. And Bill says thanks for the hat tip on everything. You earned it, Bill. That's right. So, no, this was fantastic. So I think everybody's got a chance to get to know you a little bit better tonight. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Definitely want to mention Colonialism being a straight Euro game, but like you said, it's a dark, gritty topic, and people have said kudos to you on it's a really fascinating game. Yeah, dark thematic topic, but really a great game, and it's still available from Compass as well. But Attrition of Souls, you can see quite a few people. So, I'm surprised actually how many people said, yeah, everybody's been playing it solitaire, and they really love they really like how you went with those optional rules, it looks like, and your approach, the mechanics and theme you went for. So a big thumbs up from everybody. I'm happy everyone's enjoying it. You really stoked my ego, and thanks for having me on. I had a lot of fun. That's awesome. No, it was a pleasure to have you on here, and best of luck with that. What was the first game you mentioned, NORAD, or what was the very first? DEF CON 1 is the current working title for essentially Attrition of Souls minus dice, and that's good. If I ever get back around to it, that's going to take place during the Cold War and have nuclear weapons involved. So, all right, cheery. I like my cheery topics. Cheery topics. There we go. And we have folks that, when folks get to know a designer, they like to recommend titles and different topics. Although I know you focus on the mechanics first, so we'll probably see on here on the Constant World Forum, Discord, Facebook, Twitter. Maybe we'll see some comments about what games they'd like you to consider doing, because a lot of people are sold on your design approach. They like your style, and they really like, getting to know you through Attrition of Souls. They really like your design approach. So take a little bit of a respite. Like you said, you're resting a little bit right now, but not too long. And hopefully, hopefully we can work with you. I'm confident we'll be working with you again, hopefully here in the near future. So thank you so much, Scott. I would love to work with Compass again, and thanks again for having me. All right. Take care, Scott. It was a pleasure to have you on tonight. Take care. Take care. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. Oh, it's great to have Scott. I hope you enjoyed having Scott Leibbrandt on tonight for our Compass Games Live. So I hope you learned a lot about An Attrition of Souls. So it's nice to see there are some videos that have been out there posted, and they're now available on our product page. So we're very happy to have Scott on with us tonight. you.